Yeah. Hello.
Welcome, everybody.
Yes. Hi. Good to see you. Some familiar
Oh,
faces. Hello.
yeah.
Some new faces. Welcome. Welcome to our little sneak peek. Yes. Hi.
So again, welcome. We're going to do just a short half hour kind of just a chit chat about what this coming workshop is about. But first of all, I'd just like to introduce ourselves for the few of you who haven't met us in the other workshops, and there have been quite a few now at this point along the way. My name is Nirodha. I'm a senior facilitator for Path of Love and have been around this work for what's getting to be a crazy long time now. It's like into the decades. And it's very, very precious to me. I'm also a psychotherapist here in Santa Fe, have a private practice, and work very much with the theme that this particular workshop on attachment will have.
Yes. And hi. Oh, there's Margaret. Hi, I'm Gita. I'm talking to you from my living room in Sedona, Arizona, and I have a private practice too, and I've been doing body-centered psychotherapy, starting with that in India and in Germany in the late 1980s, so also a crazy long time. And Nirodha and I developed this actually originally to do it in person before the pandemic hit. And now we're doing it online. And we're glad that you're here and that you're interested in this work. And this workshop about who am I in relationships, understanding attachment is only the first of a series of 5 that we will do together with Mushkan and Niten. And you can look that up on the Path of Love website if you're interested. But what we'll be talking about today will start next weekend with Niroda and I, and it would be wonderful to see you there. All right, so let's just maybe land for a moment. So maybe take a moment to just feel your feet on the floor. Maybe you want to move your toes a little bit or stretch your feet a little bit in your slippers, depending on how cold it is where you are. And and then look around your room, the room that you're in right now, and let your eyes maybe linger on something that you like a wall hanging or a plant or a view out the window, and see if you can still feel your feet while you do that. And then, having landed in this room and in your own body a little bit, look around on the screen and maybe look at the other people that are here just for a moment, and just see if it's at all possible to still feel yourself in your chair while you're looking at other people, because there's always a whole world that enters our consciousness when we look at other people, when we become aware there's others around us. And attachment is all about that negotiation. How much can I be here in myself when I'm also attuned to and engaged with the other? And not to judge yourself. Maybe there's a little bit of an excitement somewhere or a little bit of a tightness that comes. And if that is so, just let yourself go back again and sink back into your own body. And just really, you have the luxury to be here for you while you're also here with us and with other people, whatever that may look like for you right now. And then let's try something with our hands. And we just do that in order to see what that feels like to include others with the body, right? Connection, engagement has something to do with our eyes, our voice, but also with our bodies. Do I lean forward? Do I lean back? Can I reach out? Do I not want to reach out? So maybe just for a moment, imagine you could just stretch out your hands to all these people in this Zoom room, and as if you were going to touch the person next to you. And just notice what that feels like. And again, there's no right or wrong here. This is just for you. Just let yourself notice, do I want to open up to the side as if I was maybe eventually holding someone's hand or touching someone's shoulder? Or do I not? Notice if your hands are more kind of curled up, your fingers, or if they want to open, or how far they want to open. And then also see how much space do you want to take out from your chest. Can you still breathe when you do that? And just trust yourself. If it's too much, you can come a little closer, including the others, the presence of the others in the room, while being there with yourself, sensitive and attuned to yourself. What does that look like for you? Yes, very nice. And then allow your hands to slowly just come to your chest, and just for a moment sense what that feels like. If you give yourself, your own heart, your own body, all that attention. And if your eyes want to close, you can let yourself have that. Now you're here for yourself, with yourself. Yes. Very good. All right. Thank you so much for joining me on this little entry meditation. Then Nirodha, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. What we're going to look at in this first part of, and probably in several ways, all the way through the series that we're going to be doing, that's going to start very soon, next Saturday, and go all the way into next October, actually. So it's quite a series of groups, all working around relationship, which doesn't necessarily mean just intimate partners. It can be friends, working colleagues, that kind of thing. But just what comes in that, bringing more awareness and light into some of the dynamics happen in a relationship. And the purpose, of course, is then bringing more choice into it, starting to recognizing what's present and what's actually coming out of the past. And I guess the easiest way to talk about that is starting from the past and then working forward. As children, we're of course perfectly vulnerable, and really, I mean perfectly. And it's such an incredible way. You look in the eyes of a baby, and it's just amazing, the openness and the almost a clean slate. And that vulnerability, of course, isn't, the child isn't thinking all about protecting it, but as we go through life experiences, there's a certain amount of protection, sometimes an enormous amount that develops. But that vulnerability, attached to it is spontaneity, attached to it is all of our feelings that we expose, and attached to it eventually is intimacy. And then from that comes nourishment for the heart. So as we start to develop the need to protect ourselves around that vulnerability, we start to protect ourselves around all of those. So just as we started to avoid that vulnerability as a child, of course, the next time that level of vulnerability is going to come up is going to be in close relationships. We start to open up, we start to be seen and met, which the heart is just dying to have again. And that is both well, more than anything else, it's an opportunity. I mean, it can seem like a curse at times because we have this conflict of both wanting to really show up and at the same time wanting to defend ourselves. But it's also an incredible opportunity when that comes up to actually work through some of this and start finding out that today we can open up and show ourselves the way we want to be seen. Whereas at some point we had learned not to do that so much, but we can do it with all our intelligence. So with that intimacy, there comes a strong sense of belonging. And we start to protect that sense of belonging. And it's a great risk of then not being able to show up with who we actually are if we're just completely out there with the other, making sure that we stay connected. We're not actually tuning into inside of like, am I connected here and what's true for me? You know, can I be free and belong at the same time? So there's the conflict and the challenge that comes into the relationships. And we develop very early on patterns that were built around that need for a defensive structure. And then there's some really interesting people, getting to be a while back now, a few decades back, who started exploring that. And they started exploring what is it that they started noticing that there's very specific ways that different people were developing that structure of protection around themselves, or that developing their relationship around vulnerability is a better way to put it, really. They started organizing, each one of us started organizing around that vulnerability, but they started noticing there's very specific ways that people would organize around it. Organize around lack of connection, or the loss of connection, organize around the fear of that loss of connection, originally with the parents or primary caregivers. And what was really interesting about when they started studying this thing is then they started noticing that with incredible amount of consistency that would carry on in future relationships for that child on. They'd studied these children all the way through adulthood. And they started recognizing a really strong correlation, very, very strong correlation if you look at research, with the early patterns that were developed and then the way we tend to react under stress in relationship in the present time. And they called this attachment styles. And that's what we're going to be working on in the first 4 Saturdays when we come together. And we'll start kind of bringing some light into starting being able to recognize what each one of those 4 styles are very specifically, even though as you start to look into this, you may be noticing crossover, of course. Oh yeah, I recognize, for instance, myself, I recognize part of one and part of another, and they come up at different times in different ways. So we're going to go through the 4 styles just very quickly with you, just to give you a touch on what they are. And Gita will start with the first.
Yes. So I just want to reiterate what Nirodha just said, that we are not ever just one style. So when we mention them now, don't try to box yourself in. We usually live different things at different times of our life and different relationships or phases of a relationship. And also, we're not doomed to always stay in these patterns, of course, which is why we do this work. We want to learn to widen our perspective and our options when we relate. And that's what this workshop and ultimately the whole relationship stream is about. So one of the styles is called avoidant, which means we tend to avoid intimacy a little bit. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't choose to be in close relationships, but when we are, the avoidance style would try to be a little bit aloof, a little bit untouchable, not come too close, not disclose too much. It's something where withdrawing is safer than feeling one's own needs and expressing them, of course. And so there is a tendency to become rather self-sufficient I rather don't need anything from anyone, so then I can't be disappointed. That would be the avoidant style. And in an avoidant relating style, the nervous system is underactivated. Yeah, there's a certain I'll rather keep my calm. I don't get too excited because then I could get disappointed or hurt. So I rather keep my cool. That's avoidant. All right. So when you if you would use the hands again like we did in the beginning, maybe try that for a moment. Just for a moment, hold your hands out as if you were to create a little bit of space. Maybe across from you is a person you really love and you want something from them, but you're still a bit like, okay, I'm going to decide how close I let you. Yeah, and it can be to the front or to the side. I need my space here. Don't come too close. I want you here, but not that close. And just notice how familiar that feels or not. Yeah, how much do you go through life with guarded, a little guarded? Okay, thank you. That was number one. Nirodha.
Okay, so the second one that they identified was something that they called anxious attachment style, where the child originally, where that style developed, probably the primary caregiver, one of the parents or both of the parents, weren't consistent enough in being able to attune to the child to understand what the child's needs were, or were sometimes there and sometimes not there, to the point where the child started getting very, very anxious, as the word says, about like whether the parent will be there for them or not. And they start to get into this place of real strong desperation. And the sense of belonging with the caregiver is always in question for them. And so there's this feeling, there's something, I have to do something in order to make sure I can hold that connection. And as we grow older and then in relationships that starts showing up, of course, there's a certain sense of, we judge our needs as needy at that point because there's a certain desperation behind them. There's a certain attempt to get something, and we're not always seeing that it maybe is in fact there that we're trying to get. So we're working over hard, and that's where the nervous system is really hyper activated, very different from the avoidant. It's like the nervous system is very activated and overworking, trying to get and preserve the connection that's there. And it can create, self-fulfilling prophecies. The person might pull back a bit because this other one is leaning forward so much. So it has, consequences in a relationship. Any one of these do, when we don't have the capacity to be aware of them, name them, and then even get playful with them. Actually, it's, I just recognize I'm beginning to go into that space. And then that changes the game in a relationship, honestly. It starts to be like each other's helping each other kind of get to know ourselves better and better. Okay, and the other thing I want to say with that is like, because I like this hand exercise we're doing, if you imagine with your hands, like kind of like, if you use your hands right now and just imagine trying to get something with your hands, feeling the tension in your forearms right now and the tension across your chest, and maybe tightening your belly a little bit and tightening your jaw a little bit, and imagine trying really hard to get something, trying to make sure that that person loves you, or is with you or cares about you, and trying to figure out what you need to do to make them happy. You're almost outside of your body in a way to make sure that they, that the connection is solid. So really feel that there's something in the hands often with that. Okay, we won't stay there very long. You can shake that one off if you like. It's a strong one.
Yeah, and for some people that wanting can be more like a pleading, like, oh, like a little puppy dog, and for others more tense. Okay, then I go to the secure. That is actually the most interesting out of these three parts, and or four parts, we will be working with that quite a bit, because the secure attachment type is a child, a baby who felt secure, who didn't kind of give up like the avoidant or fight for their needs like the anxious, but knew that even if the parents or the caregivers aren't always perfect, because of course they aren't, it's good enough. They are attuned to the child well enough. So something in the child's nervous system is quite rested. It feels basically safe, even if there are unsafe moments. And of course, we want to learn from the secure attachment style, because what a secure person, somebody who has that basic trust, because there was enough attunement to them and their varying needs when they were little. What someone who has that trust has is, for instance, a capacity to bear when there's conflict in a relationship, when there's rupture, when two individuals sometimes are not on the same page, when one person has different needs than the other. Someone with the secure relating style can just be with that for a bit. But then they also are flexible, then, because the nervous system is more supple. It's less frozen or rigid in a certain mode as the first two that we mentioned. So they can then also repair what was broken in a conflict, or what was a little bit strained in a certain situation. So they can go and say, hey, what was that this morning? Or I'm so sorry if you heard it like that. I actually didn't mean that. So there's a fluidity that we will be learning from in this 4-week workshop. That's part of our objective for this course. Okay, Nirodha, you want to go? Oh, the secure relating style would be a little bit like your hands open. Your hands are just able to respond to what comes. Yeah, they don't need to defend. They also don't need to try and pull in. They're more like, okay, what comes comes, and hey, something's coming, how fun is that, let's play with that. Or something's not coming, should I ask for something? Or what's coming I don't like, so I'm going to put up a little boundary here, but I'm still open. So maybe play with that just for a moment and feel that, having your hands open and being just available. Is something coming my way? Do I have an impulse to move forward to someone? Or maybe I'm just sitting here, and maybe what comes towards me is, I'm not so sure whether I want that, so I'm having it both. I'm open, but I can also say no if something comes that I don't want, but I can move back and forth. I can engage, I can reach out my hands if I want to, and I can pull them back whenever I like to. And just notice how that feels in your body and in your autonomous nervous system. Okay, thank you. Nirodha?
Yeah. And also with the secure, notice how your center of gravity is really inside. The locus of control, they call it, is really internal. You're experiencing how you feel inside so, excuse me, so much more than somebody who's anxious, who's really out there with the other person, dependent on what's going on the other person to try to regulate their nervous system. Also, they noticed very much, these same researchers, that what was really interesting about it is, in a partnership where one person is secure and the other isn't, that a person who's less secure tends to move towards the secure attachment style. They tend to start to find out that they can be with themselves because they can feel what it's like. It's a classic role model situation. So the last style we're not going to talk about much now or during the group, I don't think, but it's something called disorganized. And it's really where the parent was maybe sometimes safe, but maybe also sometimes perceived as scary to the child. And that leaves the nervous system very, very frazzled. Yeah, so there's like a lot of confusion. It's almost like your nervous system sometimes feels like it's in a tremendous windstorm and it's being kind of tossed around with feelings of threat and feelings of safety and feeling, it moves very, very quickly on the inside. Yeah. And so those are the 4 styles basically that we'll be working on during this time. And then Angie's going to put up a slide right now just to kind of show you a few points there. Oops. Once we understand the earlier patterns we developed in childhood, out of our need for safety, we have the keys needed to heal our deeper issues that arise in relationship experiences, and generally in any interactions with other people.
And the second point is about that tension that we always experience in relationships, that on the one hand, we want to belong, we want intimacy, we want nourishment. And on the other hand, we also want to keep our integrity, our autonomy, our feeling of freedom. And we will explore that in this course.
And the last point is a really big one. And it's important, I think, that everybody knows that that's really where we come from when we're doing this work. All the work around Path of Love, and in general, all the work that I do, is it's all the baggage that we look at in this isn't who we are. It's simply something that we've learned to carry along the way. So the work really is about developing awareness. So we'll examine, with that clear understanding that we are a flow of being and experiencing, and that flow can get sidetracked at sometimes or blocked by this baggage. And so the work we're doing here is with great respect for the flow.
And also maybe we could say it's with a great respect for the present moment, for just being here with whatever is here, our impulses, our sensations in our body, our longings, what really matters to us. Like Nirodha said, shifting the focus back toward what's here, because only when I'm here can I really meet you on the outside. And so we will be doing this 4-Saturday workshop starting next Saturday, and it's called Who Am I in Relationship? Understanding Development of Attachment. And then there's 4 more modules. So go to the Path of Love website and check it out. The whole series is called Meaningful Relationships. And we would love to see you next Saturday. And we would also, if you feel like taking a deep dive, making 2021 your year where you really look at who you are and how you can be yourself more in any kind of interaction and relating situation, you're very welcome to join us for the whole stream. It's a fabulous stream. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Really beautiful you all came.
Have a great weekend. And be kind to yourself.
Bye.
Bye. See you next time.